to lock your opponent down. So it's going to be interesting to see how this matchup plays out, because these guys do know each other's lists exactly.
Yep, let's take a look over at Will Jenkins. He is our #1 seed. He got 35 match points, a pretty incredible accomplishment for himself. Had a top 4 finish at the Toronto Regional, second place at a special event, the special event in North America, and top 8 at Daytona Regionals. So really trying to lock in one of those big finals or championship performances.
Yeah, absolutely. Will has been here before in these situations, but is lacking that big tournament win. I know it's something that would mean a lot to him in order to lock that up. Over on the other side of the table, we do have Justin, like we said, a regional champion earlier this year in San Diego, using that Garchomp and Giratina tag team. So really favoring these tag team Pokemon with high HP, doing really high damage.
Yep, he has a regional championship to his name from San Diego. He also had a top 4 finish earlier in Memphis. He's one of those big contenders, always facing for the top, the day 2 contention, trying to get some better placements in the World Championships. And he's seen these top tables countless times, even in the senior division. I've casted his World Championship game, so I know this guy can play.
Yeah, absolutely. Comes from a Pokemon family. In fact, his brother, of course, a 2-time world champion, world champion in 2017 in the seniors division, and then previously as a junior had a decent finish as well. So, you know, you got to imagine these guys have played a ton of Pokemon over the years.
All right, well, let's see if the prize cards have anything in here for us. This mirror match can be pretty interesting. Do see one Phoebus in the prize cards, but nothing too wild coming up.
Yeah, he did prize his one of Muck over on Justin's side, but I don't think that's something that's going to be super relevant here in this mirror match. Generally something that's really important for some of the other matchups you might face, so kind of a fine prize card to see in this specific instance.
All right, we'll see. It looks like the players are getting underway. Well, there was a mulligan that needs to be resolved, but we are underway in the top 8 of our regional championship.
Top 8 underway. Will on the left, Justin on the right, and it looks like Will be the player going first. And this is kind of an interesting choice as well. When you win the flip, choosing to go first or second in this mirror can be, you know, a big difference. Which GX attack do you want to use in this mirror match? That's something we've talked about before going on here today. Pale Moon GX on Trevenant and Dusknoir, a really good option. Generally, though, this deck does aim to use Horror House GX with Gengar and Mimikyu tag team, so we might see players mix that up here in this matchup.
Yeah, I really think that it comes down to which player is getting that first attack off, and if they really want to focus on that. Just depends on what can line up for you. If you need to make that big swing turn, Pale Moon GX is a great way to do that, limiting your opponent from all those resources and their energies.
So both players here are playing the one-of copy of Wobbuffet with that Bide Barricade, and right away we see Will is bringing that to the front of the deck. Gonna go ahead and grab that off of Quick Ball. This is a really key card here in this matchup, and actually looking over on Justin's side, he started it.
Yeah, that's exactly where he wants to be. Of course, Will starting with that Dedenne, not what he wants to do. But both players now are going to be under that same lock there with the Wobbuffet, and we will not see Shaman doing much work right now.
Yeah, as long as Bide Barricade is active, players cannot use that Energy Grace ability with Melodic. So that's that's a really key part of this strategy, using Energy Grace in order to let your opponent take a prize card, accelerate your energy in play, and then use the Ace Trainer supporter card to shuffle your opponent's hand into their deck, give them just 3 cards, and then attack with Trevenant and Dusknoir, and shuffle 2 of those cards into the deck. Over on Justin's side, grabbing a Battle Compressor. Generally, these will discard things like energy because you want to activate that Energy Grace. Going to go ahead and discard Propagation Execute.
Yeah, it's always a good card to get in your discard pile early. Just gives yourself some more options when you do want to use Propagate, or when you can use Propagate.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe actually that Muck being prized for Justin could be a bigger deal, since that is a way he could shut off Bide Barricade.
Right. So we'll see if that does have any limitations there for Justin. Also going to go ahead and grab himself an Ace Trainer. Just a good card to know where it is. Having it in your discard pile means that any VS Seeker will be able to grab that for you later. So if you do end up going behind in prize cards, you can put yourself in a pretty great spot, putting your opponent down to just 3 cards.
Discarding Skyfield might seem kind of weird, but both of these players are only playing 4 of this card. So once it comes into play, it's going to be in play unless someone uses something like a Field Blower to get rid of it.
Justin does have that computer search available to him early, so might be able to get something interesting going off here on this opening turn, even though both players are just staring at Wobbuffets.
You're looking through the deck here, might be grabbing that Gengar and Mimikyu if he can use that Horror House on turn 1. That could be useful, but Honestly, where would he go from there? With Muck prized, does he really have an option to get Energy Grace up and running?
Right, it seems pretty difficult. Maybe you need to find a way to move your opponent's Wobbuffet, and then you can start using your Shamans and really start pushing the advantage for yourself. Get a lot of cards, get through your deck as fast as possible, and maybe you can get something going on following turns.
So Computer Search does give Justin access to his entire deck. He'll be able to take any one card, put it into his hand. It looks like Ditto Prism Star was the take that gives him the option to get out a Melodic and a Professor Juniper, discarding the whole hand with no cards in hand, exactly what you want to do when you play that card.
We do see that he has that weakness policy down on his Ditto.
Yeah, I think just a card he wants to burn here.
Yeah, just trying to get that out of the way. It's mainly used for other matchups. Maybe if you're playing against some of those Turbo Dark decks that have seen some popularity over the course of some of the previous regionals, but they weren't as popular coming into this event.
Now, one of the inclusions from both of these players that actually can make a big difference in the matchup is the fact that they play Tapu Lele GX. Being a Psychic type, it does not get shut down by Barricade.
Yep, that is one way to continue to push forward. So we see if Justin decides to go with that at any point. Is holding on to some other Pokemon that he can't use just yet. Yeah,
normally you want to draw through your entire deck as quickly as possible with things like Shaman and Dedenne, but by Barricade, I mean, just really the tech for this deck this weekend. That we've seen this in, other decks, trying to counteract the Trevenant and Dusknoir matchup, wanting to get Wobbuffet into the active spot on turn 1. And both of these guys including that in their list this weekend.
Curious if Justin eventually turns this into a Guzma play and tries to move his own Wobbuffet, or if he's just fine with sitting here and watching to see what Will can do. Maybe Will's hand really can't go anywhere, and he just is content with finding energies and going really slow.
Quick ball from Will. Looks like he will bring the Tapu Lele to the front right away. Knowing that Justin has his Lele in hand, brings an in to the front as well. Wonder Tag wants to disrupt what his opponent has access to already.
No. Once Will decides to go ahead and use that N, which he does here, you have to think that he's starting to look for some sort of attack, some presence, maybe some energy to go along with it, because really both players right now are just staring at each other, waiting for somebody to do something big.
Yeah, I wonder if you can even just like take your time in this instance. Neither player is really pressuring the other because of Bide Barricade. So you could even just take the 3 turns it might take to manually power up a Trevenant and Dusknoir. You do only play 6 energy cards, though.
Right.
So 6 cards. There is an energy, I believe an Ultra Ball as well. Computer Search. So Will's got a lot of options here. So any strategy he wanted to try to execute, he definitely has available to him.
Yeah, I feel like Will should probably be going with a little slower of an approach like we were talking about, but over on Justin's side, he did actually find his Guzma, so if he wanted to get a little frisky, he certainly could do that for us on the following turn.
Will going to go ahead and discard 2 Psychic Energies, so it looks like he's not taking that approach of going a little slower and manually attaching over multiple turns. Wants to go ahead and get those energies down.
All right, so we do see that Phoebus coming up to the front there. That means that Will be obviously looking for that Melodic in the coming turns, and then just try to find an available turn where you can really just start to load those energies up onto a Pokemon and start to limit your opponent from doing anything progressive.
Yeah, one thing about the Muck being prized is that for Justin is that Will really, if he gets a Grimer down, can kind of choose when he wants to turn on Energy Grace for both players, as long as these Wobbuffets do both stay active. But Justin here, like you said, has that Guzma in hand, also has an energy and a quick ball. So we could see this grab a Gengar and Mimikyu potentially.
Yeah, I feel like maybe if he had a little bit more going for him, he'd feel like he's in a better spot. But yeah, going to go ahead and go for it now.
The Guzma will bring the Phoebus on Will's side to the active. Kind of counting some numbers out, as you can see, wants to figure out what he can get rid of, what attacks he can go for. He does have the Melodic in hand. Yeah, I'm not sure if he's discarded any energy yet.
This is definitely some Shaman kind of talking right here when he's counting out with his hand here. just trying to see what's the lowest I can go for. Maybe I can grab another attacking Pokemon like a Gengar and Mimikyu or another Trevenant and Dusknoir if I want to go for 2 of those. But actually going to go ahead and grab a Shaman with a Shaman in hand. So going to have a backup plan if this weren't to draw as many cards as he wanted.
Yeah, I think we're going to see Justin drawing a ton of cards this turn. And this is a situation where if he can find a Battle Compressor, he can use Energy Grace to accelerate right away into Trevenant and Dusknoir. And I think actually Will doesn't have a huge hand size, so he might not even need to play something like Ace Trainer to limit what Will has.
That is a good point. Will is sitting on really not much. He didn't get any good Pokemon out, and he didn't attach any energies. So if you were able to remove this Phoebus from play and get a really good attack off, that'd be a pretty impressive turn.
Yeah, really kind of would put Justin in a dominant position. Didn't draw too terribly much off of that setup. Going to go ahead and put the Lele down. Has already played the supporter, but I think, yeah, we will just most likely see him fail this.
Yeah, just really trying to make a little bit more room in his hand. Would love to find that Battle Compressor that you were talking about earlier. If he can find that, we know that the attacks are going to be starting to streamline for Justin, and you'd have to think that Will would be on his back foot.
It does look like, yeah, Will has exactly 3 cards in hand, so you don't even need to play the Ace Trainer. Oh, I don't know if I see that Battle Compressor, though.
Not yet, but he threw another Shaman, so he can keep pushing here.
Just a setup for 2. Let's see it. Oh, he drew the energy, but not the compressor.
Oh, even if he had a way to discard those with an Ultra Ball or something, he'd be in a good spot here. But instead, just holding all of these energies.
And this, all of a sudden, I mean, the miss here kind of puts Justin in a weird spot. If Will is able to get that Wobbuffet back active, it's going to be up to Justin to find another Guzma to turn Energy Grace back on.
Right, and that's just a tough spot to be in. We know that he doesn't have access to that Muck, so going to be pretty difficult for Justin to find that turn unless Will allows him.
Will going to go ahead and draw for turn. Does draw that Melodic, has Computer Search in hand. And Justin, one of the other things about this is he did not get his own Wobbuffet back active.
Yeah, so now we see that Will has those energies in his discard pile. He will have access to Energy Grace. Now he just needs to set up. Looks like he does have that Gengar and Mimikyu to go along with this. Shaman's going to draw him 4 or 5 cards now.
5 cards. Finds an Ultra Ball as well. Can even keep digging if need be. And one of the kind of the nice things about having the Melodic in the active spot is that once you use Energy Grace, the Pokemon just gets knocked out. You can use it, of course, from the active spot still. And it kind of acts like a free retreat in that way where you can still bring up whatever Pokemon you want.
All right, now it's really just up to Will to map this out. He does have all the cards available to pull off the combo.
Yeah, Computer Search in hand, Ultra Ball in hand. He's going to have a ton of options here. Can really do whatever he wants. So it'll be interesting, though. Does he go for a Horror House? Or does he just go ahead and start attacking with the Trevenant and Dusknoir? Your opponent doesn't have another Phoebus down.
Yeah, potentially if he uses the Computer Search for an Ace Trainer and then grabs this Gengar and Mimikyu right here, we could just see him put his opponent down on that 3-card hand and then start pulling away. And if Justin really doesn't draw anything off of this turn, then he's in a big troublesome spot.
Yeah, and that is exactly what Will finds with the Computer Search. There we go, Energy Grace. Gonna go ahead and knock out the Melodic and accelerate 3 energy from the discard pile to a Pokemon in play. Chooses the Trevenant and Dusknoir. It comes active, and now, since Justin has taken a prize card from the Melodic being knocked out, Ace Trainer is live, and both players will shuffle in. Will get a fresh hand of 6. Justin gonna be limited to just 3.
Can you imagine how different this would have been if Justin were able to find a Dedenne, an Ultra Ball, a Battle Compressor, any of those cards, and he was in a great spot. Instead, he had to pass with his own Melodic in the active spot. It's going to be knocked out. He's not going to have energy acceleration, so it's going to be a really slow game on a 1-card hand.
Yeah, and the thing about this deck as well, though, we can't forget, it's not a perfect lock. Your opponent does still get left with 1 card in hand after Night Watch, and they still draw a card for turn. So we could very well see Justin find something like a Dedenne, something like a VS Seeker to get that Professor Sycamore from the discard pile. So even though he's going to be limited in options, he still could get something useful here.
That's fair and balanced gameplay for you boys at home.
Quick Ball going to search out that Ditto Prism Star. Debating on it at least.
Yeah, this is just Will really trying to just thin down for himself, along with leaving some options available. Maybe there is some play for a Muck to hit the board for him at some point. There's it's just fine to keep some options available for yourself. Maybe even another melodic or something if something wild were to happen with a Pale Moon GX.
Yeah, or if this active eventually gets knocked out. Oh, it's a Shaman on the Night Watch.
Oh, that is tough.
That's one of the draw outs Justin had. He will have one card in hand, and then the one card he draws for turn. And between these two cards, he's really got to hope for something good.
Yeah, even the decision of who you promote in this point is pretty difficult.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't used any of his float stones yet, I don't believe. So if he has a good card here in hand, he can potentially move something, but does choose to go ahead and send up that Bide Barricade Wobbuffet, and he has a VS Seeker.
Yeah, he has the VS Seeker, and he has an energy in hand too. So even though it's going to be a slower approach, Justin certainly is in this game still.
So do you go for the 2 energy Pale Moon GX at this point?
It's so dangerous, but you do know your opponent's counts as you're playing a 60-card mirror, so you probably don't have to worry about any switches coming through.
Yeah, potentially. It would only be things like the Guzma or Float Stones, or even hard retreating multiple energies off the Trevenant and Dusknoir. You know that you're at least going to force your opponent to find one of those pieces.
Yep, Will, we did speak about that last turn. It did give himself that option with the Ditto to have a choice like that if that were to happen. So thinking of just about everything over on Will's side.
Absolutely. Quick ball. Going to go ahead and get rid of a Compressor. Compressor's already thinned the deck of a lot of cards, I think, on Justin's side, so might just be looking to dig a little more with something like a Dedenne. Wants to definitely get down a Phoebus.
Yeah, that's going to be pretty helpful for him here. He needs to be able to accelerate some energies if anything else were to happen. And he does have one more bench space, which is important if he does want to draw out of this continual half lock of the Trevenant and Dusknoir tag team.
Justin holding off on the Pale Moon for this turn, maybe wants to try to go for the full effect on the next turn.
Right.
Getting that extra energy attachment, of course, giving you that tag team attack option.
Yep, it's a great way to put your opponent in this really awkward spot where they need to get out of the active spot. They just lost all their energies. They need to find a melodic. They don't play a way to search melodic. You can certainly get something pretty rambunctious going on if you get that Pale Moon off.
I wonder if Poltergeist ever becomes a relevant attack here in this matchup if your opponent does gain a large hand. It's something that can one-hit KO one of these large tag team Pokemon potentially.
I haven't used Poltergeist since 2009, so if I see that coming out, I'm going to be pretty terrified.
Compressor going to thin a few more cards on Will's side. Does go ahead and get that execute in the discard pile. We saw that was one of the first things Justin got rid of.
All right, Will going ahead. He puts that Guzma in the discard, and he does have that VS Seeker, so if he chooses to get aggressive, maybe he wants to target down the Trevenant and Dusknoir of Justin, put some chip damage on that early so that you have a little bit of an advantage there.
Yeah, maybe Will could even go for the Pale Moon GX of his own this turn. He hasn't used a GX attack either, and getting rid of those 2 energies could be really good. Maybe if he combined this with a Garbodor. We know these players do play Garbotox and Garbodor, so something like a Guzma, bring up the Trevenant, and then so that the Wobbuffet's out of the active spot. Then you can go ahead and evolve Ditto into Garbodor, get a tool on it. Now your opponent cannot use Energy Grace.
Yeah, that'd be a great way to play around that Phoebus that is sitting on Justin's side. If it were to become melodic, then these energies will just be popping back onto the field. So Will would have to have a pretty nice combination to go along with that.
Does use Rescue Stretcher to bring a Shaman back. Looks like he is going to go ahead and play the VS Seeker and is eyeing up the Guzma. Is he going to go all in on this play? This is a little risky because if he whiffs the pieces, he could be in a really bad spot.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to just count out from Justin. Doesn't see any energies in the discard pile from what I remember.
Oh, and he's bringing it up. If he misses the pieces here, he'll go from a pretty solid spot to kind of a tough one. Looks like he'll go ahead and send up Tapu Lele. That gives him the 1 energy retreat option as well. And I guess this is fine as well because even if he doesn't necessarily Pale Moon GX with the Garbodor, he
did find the Garbodor and Floatstone, but he doesn't have a way to get out of the active spot. So the Floatstone is going to come onto the Tapu Lele now.
Going to go ahead and Battle Compressor, moving some more cards to the bottom of the deck that are not going to be useful at this point. Something like the Gengar and Mimikyu, Ace Trainer, and then that other weakness policy. So, I mean, if he had sent up that Ditto Prism Star, he would have had the combo, but that's a little risky if you do whiff the Float Stone.
Yeah, I think this is a fair play from Will if he just wants to go ahead and attack for 150 damage, get some chip damage onto Justin, and then he has that Milotic as a follow-up. He doesn't have all the exact information if Justin's going to be able to lock out that Melodic at any point, but I'm not too intimidated by his bench right now.
Night Watch doing 150 damage. I think Will's still in a good spot. Shuffles those two cards back into the deck and two pretty good ones to hit.
Yeah, keeps finding these really good VS Seekers. It's just Justin's real way to
Cover that energy. on Justin's side, knowing that the Wobbuffet did not come to the active spot for Will. Going to go ahead and discard the Ace Trainer, a key piece to find in this puzzle later on.
Yeah, it can get tricky when your opponent gives you the prize to
Right.
start off. But hopefully if they're doing that, they're taking some knockouts of their own and then starts to even out.
Discards the Wobbuffet right away.
Bold.
Definitely. These players do play the single copy of a Rescue Stretcher, so this could be signaling that he's got that piece in hand.
Yep. Also could just be a nod to the fact that the Grimer's already in play and Will held onto a lot of cards. So if the Muck comes down, he's not really concerned about trying to lock out anything at that point.
So I wonder, going second in this game, does Justin choose to try to pull off that Horror House GX? Or
It is a great way to slow your opponent down. You could just leave that Grimer in the active spot and then maybe remove that from play on the following turn. So you could limit a lot of your opponent's options there.
Compressor will discard one of those energy cards. Haven't seen him discard too many energy cards with these compressors, which is normally one of the first things you want to dump with this deck.
Yeah, curious if that just means that he's going to be taking one of those energies out of his hand, or if he just wants to go with a slower approach once more, where he just thinks, eventually I'll just find the energies just by attaching, and maybe I only need one this time around.
And this is going to work out pretty well here for Justin. He's got the in, also has the float stone and the energy. Looks like he is going to be opting for that Horror House strategy here in game 2.
Yeah, it's also a really great strategy when you know that your opponent isn't going to be able to get that Wobbuffet. He doesn't have that in the active spot now, so you're going to have access to all of your Shaman, your Dedenne. Even you can get that Skyfield and really start rolling, have a huge turn. If we see the Ditto or the Phoebus come down from Justin on this turn, I would expect him to really start to pull away soon.
Ultra Ball, Trevenant, Dusknoir, Melodic, lots of options. Quick Ball as well. Definitely feel like Justin's going to be getting down a Phoebus here, and his hand is honestly really well set up.
Yeah, the kids call that gas, and he's definitely got it. Quick Ball right now, grabbing him that Phoebus, also has the Ultra Ball, so really can thin this down if he wants to. Have to think that he's in a pretty great spot right now.
Phoebus was the choice. Also has Trevenant and Dusknoir in hand. Has an energy as well, and a play that you can kind of do. You do want to move the Gengar Mimikyu out of the active spot on the following turn after using Horror House. So something you can kind of do is just attach the second energy for turn, hard retreat both energies off, and then use Energy Grace onto the Trevenant and Dusknoir.
That's right. It looks like we're going to get a little more counting from Justin. Just wants to make sure that he does this perfectly, and I don't blame him for it. And looks like he is going ahead. He's looking to see if he can use that GX marker. We see it right there.
There's the flip.
GX flipped, and the Horror House is locked in.
No cards can be played from hand. Will is still able to attack, so does just go ahead and choose to collect, gets himself a couple more cards, and Justin is sitting on a very, very good hand here.
Yep, already the turn passes over, and Justin is starting to roll. Has that Milotic in play. That hard retreat that you were talking about earlier is lined up too. Now just deciding, is the better option here to use my Execute, or should I just Quick Ball away this Ultra Ball?
Yeah, could thin his hand all the way down to draw more off of this Shaman EX, but we'll go ahead and use the Energy Grace. Will does have a very large hand here, but I don't think he's going to get to keep it.
Yeah, I don't think that he's going to be able to see these cards ever again. It's starting to look really difficult over on Will's side. He just wants to play the game. Instead, Justin says, you get to watch me play your deck.
And yeah, we've talked about how this mirror match typically looks pretty different from what the normal strategy of the deck is. We saw that in game 1 where neither of these players used Horror House. Both kind of seemed like they were eyeing up the Pale Moon strategy. But here in game number 2, Justin pulling off the normal strategy, some would say, right away. And he does find Ace Trainer off of the setup.
Yep, also very wise of him to hold on to that Ultra Ball so that he did have an option. Maybe if this hand didn't work out for him, he always knows that Ultra Ball could find him another Shaman, and then he can really start to push.
Of course, Quick Ball is discarding that Propagation Execute. You can kind of see the players kind of shortcutting, noting that, yeah, I'm going to tap the discard using Execute's Propagation. Kind of just why this card is so good in the deck, being able to thin your hand out much more easily, not discard too many valuable resources.
Yep, once again, Justin just moves that up to the top for us and shows us that he's using that with the Ultra Ball. He used it with the Quick Ball, And it's just a great way to not waste all these resources as you're starting to move through your deck.
Justin does find the Alolan Muck as well. This is going to add even more to the lock, and it really limits what Will's top deck options are as far as what he can draw to get him out of this. Something like a Shaymin EX or a Dedenne, no longer alive out.
Yep, there it is for him. So Will really is going to have limited options here. He's only going to get to see a few cards, and I don't even know if you want to look at him at this point because they're not sticking around for long. He will only have 2 cards after the top deck.
I mean, Will did pull this play off in game number 1, and Justin was able to draw the VS Seeker for Professor Sycamore. We definitely could see Will hit exactly what he needs here. After this 2 cards get shuffled in, he does have a Computer Search VS Seeker. I don't think he's he didn't play Supporter turn 1, so VS Seeker not alive out, and Computer Search, he'll only have 1 other card in hand.
Yeah, that's not enough. He doesn't have access to a propagation or anything. Oh, and wow, there they go.
I think that last card is an Ultra Ball, which is just quite literally not playable. You have to have 2 cards in hand to discard with Ultra Ball, and with only 1 card drawn for turn, unless this card is a Professor Sycamore or something like that, it's going to be a pass, I think, from Will.
Yep, now he's just choosing who do I promote because I need to buy some time.
Yeah.
It looks like Phoebus is going to be the choice here.
Yeah, having the second Phoebus down makes this totally okay. Maybe you got to think that's why Will went ahead and got the second Phoebus, knowing that he might have to lose one eventually to try to wait to get back into the game. That is what gets promoted. Let's see what the card drawn is. It's an Execute.
Ouch.
That's not helpful at all. And now with only 2 cards in hand, Night Watch will just move both of those back to the deck, and Will be living off of a top deck for the rest of the game.
Yeah, and those top decks are limited too because Will really didn't get to play many cards, so really going to have to find that raw supporter off the top to get moving.
Justin obviously in a commanding position here, but you still see him kind of planning out his turn, thinking through what he wants to take, what he wants to get into play. Even if you're in a really strong position like this, you want to make sure that you don't make a misstep, make a mistake, because the game is certainly not over.
That's right. If you're in that 90% spot, try to make it 95, 99. Do what you have to do to make sure that you don't put yourself in that awkward spot where Will starts to make the comeback, because it's hard to live that down.
Just a Shaymin EX and a draw pass on Will's side. It's just it's not good.
I think this is where Will says, all right, well, thankfully we're playing 75 minutes, so I will look at these top decks, but if we were playing 50, I'm out of here.
VS Seeker going to be the grab for Justin. Does go ahead and choose to bring up the Phoebus. You do take more prize cards on the Shaymin, but Phoebus definitely potentially more threatening.
Right, that's truly the only way out that Will had. He could have had some mystical way of ripping through here. It shows that the card that he had was the VS Seeker.
I mean, Will did have a Computer Search in that opening hand. I wonder if he could have Computer Searched for a supporter and then Ultra Balled away the supporter so that his VS Seekers became live draws. I'm not sure. I mean, if your opponent doesn't go for the Horror House strategy, then you definitely want all of those pieces.
Right.
So it was definitely a really tough spot, and there's just no great. You can just see Will's body language. This is not good.
Yeah, Will was hoping to have one of those huge turns for himself. If he didn't see the Horror House, then really he was going to have the big explosive turn with that Computer Search. So took the risk. His opponent was able to get himself in that spot where he just limited everything, and Will hasn't played a relevant card in how long?
Yeah, and I mean, and sometimes you do have to take those risks, especially when you're down a game in a best-of-3 set. You might know, like, I've got to maybe have a few of the luck factors go my way, and playing to those outs is definitely what separates good players from great players. Justin going to go ahead and get down the Ditto Prism Star. Has a Dedenne in hand, but obviously can't use that with Power of Alchemy Muck. Maybe just wants to bench it so that he doesn't draw it off of an N, even.
Yeah, honestly, from Justin's side, I don't even know what he needs anymore. I would just be holding on to a lot of good cards that are great top decks. Will says, this Computer Search doesn't work. I'm out of here.
He's drawn Computer Search so many times off of the Ace Trainer, off of the top deck. And, I mean, he's drawn good cards. They're just not live outs for him. And, I mean, you can see these guys are having a good time. Will knows the situation. He's played this deck all weekend. He's done this to many opponents. So he's on the receiving end this time in top 8.
That's right. Maybe Game 3 has something else lined up for him. Would love to see that VS Seeker now.
And that's it. Will's going to go ahead and extend the hand. All Justin had to do was announce one more attack, and that would have been the game. Quick ball, not a live draw, and Justin Bokhari winning in top 8, the 60-card mirror match, and will be moving on to top 4.
Yeah, that's a pretty impressive way to close out here. We got to see both GX attacks in the mirror match. Honestly, I don't know which one was better because they both were so impressive. But a great job from Justin. Put on a great show, and I'm excited to see him in the top 4.
Yeah, absolutely, Justin. Like we mentioned at the start, a regional champion already this season. He's a player who has experienced a lot of downswings in the Pokemon TCG. He's gotten 9th place tons of times at regional championships where he's been on that bubble. This season, he's found himself a top 4, also a victory already. Was on the bubble at this tournament, was able to break in, get that win in top 8, and you know he's feeling great right now.
Yeah, he